All right, guys, welcome to the fourth podcast. I got my man Dani Butler here with me. Thanks for coming out. We This is going to be an amazing episode, as I say every episode. But we have someone really special in the Atlanta community here. I would say you're definitely a staple in the car community out here, man. With Butler Tire, obviously, everyone even out of Atlanta knows you, man. So welcome, and I'm looking forward to this, man.
It's my claim to fame, Butler.
It's your claim to fame.
Yeah, it's funny because everybody sees me and they're like, "Oh, that's the Butler dude."
The Butler dude.
Yeah, but when you actually think about it, I took a different approach to the business. I mean, the business was started by my family, and then the next generation was our responsibility to continue the legacy.
Right.
And how do you do that? You get involved in the community. You go out there, you shake hands, and you meet people. And I've still got some incredible relationships and friendships out of the business, but it was because I was on the street and I was out at car shows and talking at car dealerships. And, but Butler was an amazing chapter in my life, but,
yeah, so we'll get into that. So I want to start from the very top though, man, because anybody that's watching out here, I'm sure that they're inspired by your story if they know you, and people that are looking to get into the luxury and exotic car industry, that's why they are going to be coming to the channel. But I want to start from the top, man. Like, where are you from? I know a little bit about you because I've done some homework.
Yeah.
But I want to know where you're from. How did you get to Atlanta? Like, how did you get into all this? Like, kind of start from the top.
So originally from South Africa, even though my accent's from Valdosta, Georgia.
Yeah.
Just kidding. But I was born in South Africa, then came here when I was 20 years old.
Like Cape Town?
No, Johannesburg.
Okay.
More inland. My family has been here. My uncle has actually been here since 78, so a year after I was born. So he's been here for a very long time. He's the one who started Butler.
Your uncle?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's an awesome story because he actually, created a company that was able to support his entire family.
Really?
So he started it, and then my other uncle came from South Africa to join him in the partnership. And then my mom came over. My grandmother was even involved in the business, and so he created this business that was able to support the entire family.
Wow.
So yeah, I've been here for 27 years. Been through a lot. I spent a lot of time in Israel, actually. Most of my childhood was in Israel until I was about 13 years old. Then moved back to South Africa for 6 years.
So South Africa, Israel, back to South Africa, then to Atlanta?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I've been in Atlanta for 27 years. Love it out here. Love the people. Love the culture. Love, the topography.
Yeah.
Love the fact that you can get anywhere in the world pretty much from here.
Yeah.
Still not used to the weather. The heat kills me every year. But yeah, I mean, I started out, in South Africa as we were lower class. My father worked from hand to mouth, and so I watched him struggle. I watched him struggle his entire life, and when the opportunity came to come and live here with my mom, my parents were divorced, obviously, and when I had the opportunity to come live here with my mom, I took it. I took the opportunity because, I don't know, South Africa was going through a lot of changes. Mandela had just come into power. The country was going through amazing transitions and changes, but there was no opportunity for anybody in the lower class to ever be successful. And this is my opinions.
Sure.
And so my work ethic was always there. I just wanted to grind and make money and, not land up like my father, unfortunately, And I even had this conversation with my father, I'm like, thank you for all the life lessons, but the one thing you taught me is how to work hard and how to make sure that I don't, struggle like you did or like I watched you struggle.
Did he appreciate that?
I think many years later, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think as a parent, there's always a sense of pride when your son has got great, or your child has got great work ethic.
Sure.
And eventually, I mean, he passed away 2 years ago, but
Gotcha.
I'm sure he'd be proud. you know.
No, yeah, of course.
Yeah, I left school when I was 16. I turned to my parents and I'm like, you're wasting your time.
Really, at 16?
Yeah, wasting your money. I was at a private school and I'm like, I just want to go out there and work hard and make money.
Did you really?
Yeah.
So at 16, okay, so you're what? That's still high school, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, what? That's not even.
Yeah.
That's not even. You didn't get through. Did you get through high school?
Nope.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, like even from an early age, at like 13, when you know everybody's going to their friends at school's parties, and I was out there hustling, man. I was being dropped off at 4 a.m. at a flea market to sell frozen yogurt.
Really?
You know, and I would stand there all day. Couldn't feel my fingers by the end of it, and I was like one of those push carts, you know, where you had to open the lid and there was dry ice inside there, and you know there was this frozen yogurt in this plastic container that I had to put in hot water, and I would stand there and hustle all day, and you know make a few rands, which is South African currency. But eventually I worked my way up. At 13, I went to the owner of the business, and I asked him if I could get another cart. And so,
Are you serious?
yeah, I went and found one of my friends who was willing to do it with me as well. And I set him up on the other side, and I paid him out of my earnings, you know, and it just evolved from there, man. I was always into music. And so the evolution of that was my dad obviously was driving me around, and he's like, look, I'm waking up at 3 o'clock on a Saturday and Sunday morning to drive you to work. I'm all about it, but it's enough.
Yeah.
So, we came up with the idea that I wanted to be like a mobile DJ, like a, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking back in the early 90s,
Yeah.
you know. So I saved up enough money. We went out there, bought a setup, and thankfully my dad was super handy with his hands, and helped me build a whole console and setup and the lights and everything. The only thing is that I was still relying on him to drive me everywhere.
Right.
But I treated it like a proper business. At 14 years old, I had a schedule. I went out there and networked with my friends' parents, you know, so I went over and above the friends and went directly to the parents.
Right.
And started scheduling people's birthday parties, and I would come, and
That's
I was
awesome.
one of them, and I was DJing, and, you know, I still, back then it was vinyl, you know, I was still using vinyl and cassette, and, but yeah, eventually that evolved into him coming back to me and saying, I can't do this at night, like every Friday night, Saturday night. Yeah, you know, like you're taking up my weekends. He said, okay, what about being a waiter at a restaurant? And so I was like, okay. So he said, I'll tell you what, you raise some money, bring an amount to the table, I'll match it, we'll get you a motorcycle at like 14 or 15, and then you can drive to the restaurants and you can be a server. And that takes me out of the equation. And I was like, sick, you know, my dad's like,
helping you game.
Yeah,
like
no, and he's like, yeah, man, we'll buy this motorcycle. So anyway, bought a motorcycle and started working at Longhorn in South Africa. Gained huge experience, you know, with customer service and understanding, you know, the service industry. I think every person should go and experience being a server, and the abuse that you get, but the rewards that you get from it, and understanding customer satisfaction. And
right. And this was in South Africa.
Yeah, this was all in South Africa.
Okay.
Yeah. And then when it came to school, man, I was failing. I was kicked out of 7 out of 9 of my classes.
Really?
Yeah, I would spend most of my time in the quad. The only classes I would do was biology, because the teacher really liked me, and in fact, she would write out all my exams, write out all my documents, all the papers that I had to do. I didn't do anything. And the other one was art. I was just always super creative.
Right.
So yeah, at like 16, I turned to both my parents. My mom was actually living here, my dad was there, and I said, look, you can waste your money. I'm failing. I'm probably gonna redo these years for eternity. Like I just don't have.
Dude, I am the same exact way. Like, I totally understand where you're coming from with that. I did the same thing when I was going through school.
Yeah.
Just really bad GPA. I did get through high school. I got into college a little bit. Got into my first semester. Was literally just hustling. Because granted, I was in a long distance relationship, and that was my driving force. Like, I just wanted to hang out with her.
How old?
Yeah, I was like this was like when I was, I mean, I met her when I was like 15, but I was like 18 around this time. I mean, because when I got to college, I had all this freedom.
Yeah.
So I just hustled, man, in any way that I could.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally saw people, like I saw students running around the campus and they were running around when it rained with books over their head and stuff, random stuff over their head, no umbrellas. And it's just random. And I was so young at the time, but I saw nobody with an umbrella. And I went to the school store and I saw that the least expensive umbrella was like, I don't know, $30. And for a college kid, that's like, why am I going to spend $30? That's like 7 beers I could have or whatever, right? And so I went on like Alibaba and I bought a bunch of umbrellas at wholesale and I started hustling them out at, $5. And then there's a gas station chain in Statesboro called Fast and Easy.
Okay.
And I somehow got connected with the owner of it and I started sending him umbrellas to sell like at Wholes. Like it was crazy. Like it was insane. So
I love the journey that people take in order to get to where they are today.
yeah.
And I think that every single experience lays, or you start with your foundation, then starts laying layers over and over that get you to the point of where you are. But I was wasting my time at school. I knew it, and I think my parents knew it as well. And my mindset was, if I left school at 16, right? By the time the same people that were at school with me graduate, go to college, and then go and start their career, I would have already have had 5 years of real world experience. And that's what I did. I went out there, and I think I was off school for one day and started working the very next day. I was super into car stereo at that time.
Okay.
And car audio, and I got involved with this company called Motorfit. And I started, like, I came in at 16 years old, South Africa. It was, post-apartheid, but it was still a little bit there. And so I came in as this entitled white kid, which I hated, and I came in as a workshop foreman, with this car stereo and security company, and I hated it. I hated that I had no experience, but because I was white, I had to come in there and manage everybody that's got tons of years of experience. So
Yeah.
I instead of approaching it the way that the owner wanted me to approach it, I integrated myself with the team. And so I learned a lot about wiring and immobilizers and security, because the crime rate in South Africa is so high that
yeah, I have some friends from there, and she was actually just visiting, and she was saying all the same stuff.
Yeah, like nothing. Unfortunately, South Africa is an amazing, beautiful country, but
Yeah.
when I was living there back in the mid-90s, nothing was yours. It was yours until somebody decided to take it, and that included your life, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, I worked my way up through that, then left there knowing that I was going to come to
The States.
Took a job at a place called Fishmonger, which is a fish restaurant. I don't eat fish anymore just because of that. I can't deal with it, But yeah, I came here. I remember coming here, and back then I was a major stoner. And that was my entire life. I had long hair and, didn't care about my appearance or anything like that. And,
Sure.
I remember going to one of my uncles and I'm like, man, hook me up.
One of the ones that was starting up Butler.
Well, Butler had already been going since the 70s.
Okay.
So they were well established. This was at their peak of their success.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that already had 4 stores opening, 3 stores opening the 4th.
So here in Atlanta, right?
Yeah.
Even at that time, there's 3 stores in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So what made them choose Atlanta, and how did they kind of get started? You don't have to go too deep into it, but how do you know?
From what I've gathered, from the bits and pieces that I've understood, my uncle was traveling the United States with his wife back in the 70s and 78. Came across Atlanta and just fell in love and just never left.
Yeah.
And going back, my grandfather actually had 2 tire stores in South Africa that both my uncles were involved in. So they already knew the industry.
Okay.
And so I don't know why he picked Atlanta. I mean, I think back in the 70s, in the 80s, I mean, Atlanta was a spot.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of location with the weather, I mean, it's just you experience all the seasons and stuff like that. So
I mean, I know even when I moved here in '97, you could get anywhere you wanted to in Atlanta in 15 minutes.
yeah,
There was no like real traffic. 400 was one lane.
really,
Yeah, you know, and it actually ended. Like
yeah.
it ended like at exit 17. It stopped being a highway.
And it was a toll road and everything, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, going into Buckhead and everything. So Atlanta was a very, very different place. But like you said, I mean, the the architecture, the structure, the weather, everything was, you know, familiar. And then there was a huge influx of South Africans that came over around the same time that I did,
Okay.
just after the Olympics. I
Oh,
think the
okay.
Olympics put Atlanta on the
On the
map.
map,
Yeah,
100%.
you know, and so there was a huge influx. I remember moving here, and then all of a sudden, every week there was like thousands of. Can you believe this one's here, and this one's here, and that one's, you know.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I think Butler was a gas station when my uncle first bought it.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow. And they did tires on the side or something.
So it was like a full service center, and if you even go to the Marietta location right now, right as you pull in the entrance, it's got like the island where the pumps used to be. You know,
Wow.
it's still there.
That's sick.
And there's even a picture inside of the old gas station. And my uncle was running it for a while, and then called for my other uncle, the older brother Mel, to come over. And I think on the first day they were doing an oil change, and one of the techs stripped the bolt.
Oh,
And Mel was like, "That's it. We don't do oil. We don't do
maintenance.
yeah, under the hood, none of that. Tires, and that's it."
Okay.
And so that went well. They sent off all the oil equipment, everything, and they started focusing on tires. And then they started getting into retreading and recapping.
Uh-huh.
So back then, you know, they could manufacture a tire that was just as good as the original for half the price. And so,
You mean like taking a used tire and like kind of refurbishing it? Is that
yeah,
what you
so
mean?
they take a tire, and it's called a casing, which is the sidewall, and they strip down the tread
Mm-hmm.
all the way down to the rubber,
Right.
and then they lay new rubber in on top of it, fresh
Okay.
rubber on top of it, and they put it into a mold, and create the tread.
Right.
And so you could buy a casing, which is the sidewalls of the tire, pretty much a tire without tread,
Mm-hmm.
for $10.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but
Yeah.
you put some rubber onto it, put a tread onto it, and now you're selling it for $90 to $100. So the profit margin was huge.
Huge.
Yeah, and so they focused on that for a long time. In fact, they had the tires speed rated, and by a company in Italy. It was called Stallion Rebuild was the brand.
Uh-huh.
And back then, with the Corvettes and the Porsches that had the super wide tires on the back, they were super expensive.
Yeah.
And so you could get a tire for half the price. Well,
Right.
you know, over time, the manufacturers start catching up, you know, and they can mass produce these tires, and they could produce them for just as much as we could. And so I think my uncle sold that division of the business, and then applied the same business model, but to tractor trailers.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Okay.
you know, and started doing big R22.5s on the big semi trucks. And I mean, you used to notice on the highways, we used to call them road gators,
Uh-huh.
because the tread would come off of the tire. I mean,
Oh.
essentially using glue, you know, to put rubber onto it, and then you pressing the tread on.
Yeah.
And the same thing happened. You know, the evolution is that manufacturers are figuring out how to cut costs down, and get to a point where they can manufacture the same products that we could for even cheaper.
Right.
So that's why now you don't see a lot of tread laying on the roads anymore, because a lot of the recaps are either better quality,
Uh-huh.
or they're not even used anymore.
Not even doing it.
Yeah, so they sold that part, and at that point in the business, I think it was a huge pivotal point.
And you were there during all of this,
No,
right?
no.
Oh, you weren't there yet.
Yeah,
Okay, got it.
this was
way
pre my
before.
time. Yeah.
Okay.
Then they started specializing in mags and custom wheels, and alloy wheels.
That's what I was going to ask you. When did that switch happen from
Yeah.
like tires to wheels?
I would say probably the mid '90s.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I mean, my one uncle Mel, who was primarily my mentor when I was at Butler, he was the brand. He created the brand, and everything that you expected when you came into Butler, and everything it actually was until the point I left. I don't know much about the company now, but I think he came in and just added a certain level of finesse within
Really?
the company. Started establishing relationships with Lorenzo and Tech Art back in the day, Gambala.
Yeah.
And really focusing on the luxury and high performance. And
Yeah, because hip hop, especially in Atlanta, I mean that whole scene, the rap scene, everything, that just put a lot of these, you know, aftermarket brands on the map, right?
yeah, so I mean, even if you fast forward, I mean, social media, people, there's SEMA every year, which is the convention that is built primarily for our industry, the aftermarket industry, and people always used to ask, are you going to SEMA? And you can see more on social media than you can going to these conventions.
Right.
So with the advent of social media, um, so many other brands could go out there, create a brand and create hype behind it. I mean, look at Vossen. Vossen wheels.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they built their entire brand on hype. They had 3 styles of wheels, and we couldn't keep them on the shelf.
Yeah.
And it was all built behind hype. And that was my passion, man. My passion was branding and lifestyle, aspirational sort of stuff, thinking outside of the box, and coming up with creative ideas of how to drive business.
Hmm.
And going back to your story, one of the strategies was to be known as the face of the company.
Right.
The face, the voice. And again, I never ever approached a relationship or a potential person with the intention of selling them anything.
100%.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that people do business with people they like.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, I was just having this conversation on my last podcast too, that we, selling cars is very much the same. I think any business is really the same. You have to build relationships with people. It's never about the sale.
yeah,
And then when you build that relationship, they have that trust with you. They have that, you build that credibility within them, and you essentially guide them at that point. You're not selling them on anything,
yeah.
right? And so you came in 19, did you come during the Olympics, like
No, I
1997?
came like 1 year after. So 97, I arrived in the States, and like I said, I went to my uncle. I'm like, yo, hook me up with something to smoke. And he was like, cut your hair, get a job, change the way you dress, and I'll take care of you. And I'm like, cool, no problem. Very next day, um, I knew automotive security and installation, and that's what I knew.
Hmm.
And so I went and I got an interview with American radio back then. And I even remember the guy's name was Eric Quackenbush. I'll never ever forget that name.
Why? Oh, just because
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
funny
just I
name.
mean, how do you ever forget that name? And
Yeah.
and so uh I went for the interview, and I remember the interview is like, okay, well, in order to pass this thing, I need you to crimp this wire. And he gave me like a butt connector and crimped it. He's like, fine, you got the job. And I'm like, holy shit, like this is amazing,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I mean, look, when you're living abroad and you look at the United States,
yeah.
back then in the 90s, and I even remember in South Africa, you would get a pencil and it said made in the USA.
Right.
And you knew that thing was the best pencil in the entire world.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I know that my entire circle, everybody sort of strived to live in the United States,
Right.
to call the United States home. Like that was the Mecca,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's the land of opportunities. The sky's the limit, and so I arrived at the perfect time, and I got the job with American Radio, and I worked there for a long time. I learned very quickly that I was capped at how much I was able to earn.
Yeah.
But I also learned that generally speaking, employees are super, super lazy, and they just do what they need to do to get by. And I just didn't have that personality, and,
100%.
and so I would look at opportunities and say, like, I've been asked this so many times, like, what's the secret to success? Like, I don't know, everybody's got their different interpretation of it, but
Sure.
in my opinion, all I did was apply myself 5% more than the guy next to me,
Yeah.
and you'll win every single time. That's
Exactly.
life.
Yeah.
You run 100 meters, the guy who puts 5% more effort into training and to running fast is going to win. And
Yeah, it's what you do off the court too.
yeah,
Or is a lot of it,
yeah.
honestly.
So I worked at American radio for a while. Got screwed over by one of the employees over there. What I was doing is that I had no friends. I didn't know anybody. Yeah, I'd just arrived, you know? And so I was working at American Radio and worked my way up into being the head installer there. But I had free time. I mean, you know what am I going to do afterwards? So my uncles had a house at Lake Lanier and they connected me with a few of their friends. I started doing stereos in people's boats.
Okay.
So I would leave American Radio at 6 p.m. and I would drive to Lake Lanier, which would take you 25 minutes back then.
Right.
To get there from Peachtree Industrial. And then I would work until about midnight. But I was buying all the equipment from American Radio and I was paying cash for it.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. The guy up front was taking the cash and putting it in his pocket and just deleting the inventory. I didn't know that. So when he got bust, he told them that I was taking the equipment and never paying him. I'm like, bro, I'm the most legitimate person you'll ever meet. I will never screw anybody over. And I was upset, man. I got fired from there. I was bummed. I was super, super bummed, you know. And I'm like, I can't believe it, you know. Like, you have all this faith in society, and this guy just like screwed me over, solid. So yeah, I left there, went and worked at the Source in Marietta, which was a dope little spot. Was more boutiquey. I liked it, and again, I got to a point where I'm like, I'm capped. I'm capped at 60 grand a year. That's what I'm going to earn for the rest of my life. I'm 21, 22 years old. I don't have any capital behind me to go and open my own car stereo store. So I'm like, what's next? Went to London, spent a few months in London, came back. I was all sorts of messed up, and I was like, I don't want to install radios anymore. I don't want to do security. I'm just done with it, you know.
Okay.
And that's when the internet was just sort of starting,
right?
You know, and home computing was starting, and I saw I don't know, I was on the computer and I saw Felix the cat walk across the screen, and I'm like, how the fuck did they do that? You know.
Yeah.
And so I've got like a very intriguing mind where if I see something and it intrigues me, I have to figure out how
you just dive in.
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. And so like I'll do a bunch of research to understand an industry or understand how something works.
Exactly.
And when I feel comfortable enough that I could talk about it, I'll move on to the next thing.
Right.
And so I got into web development and web design, and you know, went and did crash courses on HTML and JavaScript. And back then there was Flash from Macromedia before Adobe bought them, and came out, and I'm like, cool, I'm a web developer and I'm a web designer. I'm going to make websites and make a killing. You know, the .com is booming, you know.
Right.
So I teamed up with my cousin's girlfriend, and the minute we opened the company, the .com just crashed.
So was that when you were younger, was that always your MO, was like, I just want to make a ton of money? Like when you first started?
Okay, yeah. So, and I love this topic, you know, because I have this conversation often as well. I was focused on being rich. That's all I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I just want to be rich and I want to have a lot of money.
Right.
And I think as you get older, the focus changes from being rich to being successful.
Yes.
You know, because if you focus on success, a byproduct of being successful is being wealthy.
100%.
And there's a difference between being rich and being wealthy.
Yeah.
You know, and so I got to a point where I was like, I'm working so many hours and my entire life is focused around working as hard as I can to make as much money as I can, because I like looking at my bank and seeing I have $5,000 in there, thinking I'm the man, you know. But when I you know, shifted my mindset, and I was like, if I can pay my bills, I can put some money away and have fun. Like what else do I need? Like really, what else do I need? And so I started focusing on my career, and being successful in my career. And once I started focusing on the career versus money, that's actually when I started accumulating more wealth and actually making more money than I've ever made in my entire life.
Yeah,
you know, I was having fun.
Yeah. No, and I think like for me, you know, I'm 32, so my most recent years, I'd say the past 5 years ish, I've come to that realization. You know, it's like the idea of making a ton of money, that was gone a long time ago for me in terms of just chasing money, right? Because it's all about, you know, I heard someone say, if you want to be a billionaire, affect a billion people in a positive way,
Mm-hmm.
where they would be willing to or figure out a way to, right? And so once I realized that, I realized it's not about chasing the money. It's about, you know, just creating and adding value and improving people's life in a positive way somehow.
Yeah.
And then when I started doing that, that's when I started shifting into the idea of, I mean, the same thing with me too. Like I didn't go to college. I dropped out of college twice. I tried again. It was like,
Didn't
maybe I
learn your
need
lesson.
yeah, maybe I need to do this. But your story resonates with me a lot so far, just because I went through a lot of the same things. Like I had a very creative mindset. I just didn't do well in school. When I tried corporate jobs, I hated being capped.
Yeah,
All of that.
I was in corporate. Um, I was in corporate and I worked my way back and this will age me so well. But back then there was something called a webmaster, where you were in charge of the website and you were developing the website and you knew the server setup and everything. There was a webmaster. And so I was a webmaster at this corporate job. And the only reason the guy hired me is because on my resume it said interests, and I was like Formula One, McLaren, Ferrari, Mercedes, and he was a Formula One fan. He never hired me because of my experience or anything, just straight up on that, and because he liked me.
That's it.
Yeah, and I got into corporate. I hated it. I hated corporate.
Same.
The hierarchy, the bureaucracy, the meeting, to have meetings, to discuss meetings, to understand the last meeting. It's like, no, man. It's like, you have a concept. Let's brainstorm, storyboard it, whatever you got, and let's implement it. And
Right.
let's go out there and do it. And so corporate wasn't for me. And again, if it's for you and it's your route, that's fine.
Cool. Yeah, do it.
Yeah.
Right.
It ultimately, corporate led to the demise of my role at Butler. Because
Wow.
we landed up selling it in 22 to a much bigger entity. Even though they family owned and operated, it was run like a big corporation. And it's, you find that in corporate, and it's not necessarily true with this company, but statistically, people are in positions because of their tenureship versus their
Actual
experience,
value and experience. Right.
Yeah, and so I hated that. I'm like, it's anyway.
No, yeah, yeah.
That's
So,
my story.
yeah, no, so I want to ask you one question. So your uncle, this is from your mom's side, right?
Yes.
Okay. And all the uncles that kind of started Butler with
Yeah.
you and what have you.
Yeah.
So, no, you know what's also interesting? I think it was Einstein that said it. He said that I believe in education, I just don't believe in schooling.
Yeah.
And when you were talking about how you got into the web development and when you get interested in something, you dive deep into it. I mean, you're teaching yourself. And I think that's so major, because I think with college, and nothing against anyone that went to college or anything or went that
the same.
route.
I'm like, each person.
To each their own, right?
Yeah.
But I saw this post the other day, and it said that, when you go through college for 4 years, it's almost like you're being groomed to kind of take orders and be like a very solid employee. And again, like there's nothing knocking that. It's just, it didn't work for me. Sounds like it didn't work for you.
Yeah.
And
I think that college has its place.
Right.
Do I regret not finishing high school? Absolutely not. I don't regret anything in this life. I never ever look back, and as cliche as it is, the only reason I look back is to see how far I've come.
Right.
For me, it didn't work. I understand business, I understand numbers, and that's what interests me. Now, it's amazing that when you put a topic that you're curious about, or that you might be interested in, how much better you absorb the
1000%.
information. Okay. And if you can tell me that at 18 years old, you understand that and you know what you want to do for the rest of your life,
Right.
I'd find it very, very interesting to see, because I think that the percentage of people that go into college studying a certain degree might graduate with it, but are they still using it 10 years down the road?
Exactly.
No. So do I think college has its place? Yes, it could lay a foundation for you to come into the big wide world. But over the hundreds of employees that I've ever hired, did I ever look at their college degree? No. And did I look at whether they got C- on a certain subject and the other person got an A+? No. I looked at your personality. I always wanted to hire people that fit the culture of the business that I was going to be in. And when you walked into Butler, and that was part of the success of Butler, was the personalized service. It's you were building relationships out there, and that's what, in my opinion, the evolution of business is. You can't just have a great product. You can to a certain degree, but it's only going to get you so far.
Yeah.
You can't just offer amazing customer service, because if you've got shitty product, it doesn't matter how good you are, you'll spend your time apologizing versus, trying to find more product.
Right.
But Butler was specifically focused around the culture of the employees. And I always broke it down as a want versus a need.
Right.
We would often hold meetings, and we would say, which was so funny. We would get all of our employees together, and we would say, right, who needs to be here to work? And not very often, once or twice, we would have
a hand
or two raise, because people you always start with the need. And people would be like, well, where's he going with this? Is it like a trick question? It's like when your teacher asks you, and if you put your hand up, you're going to get scolded.
Yeah.
So most people need to be at work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Because everybody needs to earn and generate income. Okay. But the one or two people that would put their hands up when they said, I need to be here, we would take note of it. Okay. And then we would say, right, who wants to be here? And 99% of our employees would put their hands up and be like, we want to be here.
That's amazing.
We want to work here. We want to come in. We want to be a part of the team. We want to drive forward. We want to do our best. We want to create the best customer experience. We want to work on dope cars. There's a sense of pride. You got this name, Butler Tire, across your chest. There's a sense of pride when you're out there. I'm working at what's considered the benchmark of luxury and high performance in the industry.
100%.
Not just in Atlanta, That's
amazing, man.
And so what we would do is that we would take those employees that would put their hands up as the need, and we would say to them, okay, what do you need? How can we help? How can we convert your need into a want?
Right.
We know you want to be here.
Yeah.
We also know that you need to be here.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, any other company could come here, offer you more money, and you would leave.
Right.
Because if that's your sole purpose of working, is to create revenue, enough revenue to sustain or to be able to live your lifestyle, then there's no loyalty to the brand. It's not a want. There's no want there.
Right.
And so we would talk with them, and they would let us know. I mean, a lot of times we would get very, very personal with what's going on in their life, and come to the table and help them. Give them more money, or help them with incentives, or create more opportunities for them. And so that's the difference, in my opinion, when you walk into a company where employees want to be there. If you look at, not to sound cliche again, but if you look at Apple, all the employees want to be there.
They want to be there.
It's a different experience.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same as your industry.
Yeah.
Okay. I deal with, and I know most of the dealerships in Atlanta. And if I don't, I'd be very, very surprised. Do I know people at each one of them? Yeah,
Sure.
Absolutely. But when you walk into a dealership, you have to understand the consumer stigma against dealerships. They all think that you want to rip them off.
Yeah.
So if you understand that stigma and you understand consumer behavior, why don't you flip that on its head?
100%.
Yeah, and give them an experience that changes their mindset. And from that mindset, guess what? Everybody, even in the automotive space, okay, people walk in and they immediately assume you're going to rip them off.
Right.
Because you're going to take their wheels off.
Yeah, anything in the automotive space.
That's the
service,
stigma.
maintenance, anything.
Yeah, that's the stigma that comes with automotive, right?
Yeah.
Well, the stigma that comes with automotive dealerships is that every sales guy's a sleazeball.
Yeah.
All he's trying to do is, extract the most amount of money out of me for this vehicle.
Right.
And in return, the consumers are coming to it being like, okay, it's my personal mission to haggle with it. So I've dealt with a lot of dealerships. I've owned multiple vehicles over the years, and to be quite honest, I deal with one or two dealerships in Atlanta, but most of my vehicles are purchased from a company called Strata Motorsports in Chicago.
Yeah, Chris and Amir.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know both of them.
Yeah.
I used to work with them.
Yeah. Amazing humans, unbelievable guys, never ever gave me an inclination that they wanted to rip me off.
Yeah.
You know, have always found me unbelievable quality vehicles and always made the transaction as simple as possible.
Right.
I'm in Atlanta, hundreds of miles away. I've never even met them in person.
Are you serious?
Yeah, but I've introduced my friends to them, and but in my opinion, they're offering an experience outside of what you would consider the stigma of automotive works. A lot of times, you know, when you're in your industry, how many times do you pick up the phone and you're like, oh man, this fucking guy is going to waste my time. You know, I'm going to try and source this car and find it. Yeah. Have I done that to other dealerships? Obviously.
Yeah.
But that's the nature of the game.
That
Are you
is the
going to
nature
close
of the
every
game.
deal?
No, you're not.
No.
No.
So it's about having the patience in order to deal with a person. And I can even touch on this. When I started at Butler, I went to my uncle, and I said to him, I'm like, if you don't start appealing to a younger demographic, this brand is going to die.
Nice.
Your clients are old, they're dying, they're not putting wheels on, and in 10 or 15 years, 20 years, the company's going to be gone.
Right.
Because you're not appealing to a younger demographic.
Right.
And he looked at me, it's like, okay, well, come up with a strategy and let's do it.
You're like, well, you do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And
so how old were you at that time when that happened? When that kind of happened?
Geez, I was 30... 31, 32. Social media had just started.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how I actually, because I stayed away from Butler for a very, very long time. I was out there and I was determined to do my own thing without leaning on my family's success with Butler. So Butler was already successful before I even got in there.
Yeah.
And then I approached my uncle. What happened is I posted a picture, Jesus, I think it was a Harman X6. Back then, a wide body.
Dude, what happened to that company?
I have no idea.
I used to love their cars, man. I would drool over their cars that they would design.
Yeah, so I posted one of those on my personal Facebook pages profile, and it just got huge engagement. People were like, oh, this is dope. This is crazy. This is mad.
What, like Facebook or MySpace?
Yeah, Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, listen, bro, I had MySpace. That's how old I am.
I had Xanga. Do you remember Xanga?
No.
Right before MySpace?
No. But even MySpace, like I would go back in there and hack it to the point where I would, I used HTML to create my own page.
The background.
Bro, people would contact me from all over the block. How did you do this? You know? But anyway,
you're in web development, so you know.
So I mean, I knew the back end.
That's pretty
stuff.
sick.
Yeah. And I posted this picture. It got amazing engagement, and I was like, hang on one second. There's opportunity here. My family built some of the dopest cars. Back then, bro, Lorenzo, my uncle was pumping out Lorenzo CL 500s, CL 63s with the Guild
Lorenzer kits.
Yeah, with the Guild fenders. You know, even the rooftop spoiler. You know,
I remember.
And so I went to him and I'm like, listen, I don't know what you do with your marketing as a whole, but I want to do your social media. Just give me your pictures so I can post them up. And get the endorphins going like everybody does when they get a like. That's all I wanted.
Yeah.
I didn't understand business, didn't understand how to convert that into leads, how to convert the leads into sales, understood nothing.
Yeah.
I just wanted the glory of him giving me the content, me posting it up and moving on from there. Instagram wasn't even a thing as of yet. You know, I think it was a very, very small portion. I mean, Maida hadn't even purchased them as of yet. And then, you know, Craig, my cousin, we were talking and he's like, you know, like maybe we need like a refresh in the marketing department. I mean, bro, when I started there, they were still doing billboards, yellow pages, terrestrial radio, you know, and I'm like looking at this and I'm like, bro, this ain't it. You know? But I spent so anyway, we went back and forth and my uncle eventually turned to me and he said, you know what, we're outsourcing everything.
For marketing?
Would you be interested in coming and working for us and bringing everything in-house? And then we could have ultimate control over our brand and what we do and everything. And I said, absolutely. And look, working for my uncles was not easy. My Uncle Mel, who I worked for directly, was a complete fucking asshole.
Yeah.
You know, and my tattoo, which says relentless here, is because of him.
Wow.
I got knocked down every single day, all day, borderline abused, and I would wake up every morning and I'd dust myself off and I'll go back
Keep
in
going.
and keep going. He passed away, unfortunately, from cancer in 2017. That's why when you go to Butler and you see MD17, that's for him. So it's Mel Dobrin, 2017 is when he passed away. But a few years before he passed away, we got into a major blowout, and I had been pushed to the end.
To the edge,
And I think that this was like 5 or 6 years into my career there, where I'd put this whole campaign together, months and months of working on it, presenting it. We were going to implement it. It came to the point of all he had to do was sign off on it, because he still had to sign off everything.
Sure.
And he was like, no, don't like the terms, don't like the conditions. You should have done this, you should have done that. Why didn't you do this? And I looked at him and I'm like, are you fucking serious? Like, after all of these months of doing this, he's like, well, you did this wrong, you did that wrong, you did. And I was like, you know what? If you don't like it, I took the papers and I actually threw them at him in his office. Now, my uncle is he's highly, highly respected in Atlanta.
Okay.
If you think of the most respected person in the automotive industry, just tenfold that, and that was my uncle Mel. He had this presence about him. He had this finesse about him, and for me to throw the papers at him and say, you know what, go fuck yourself. You do this yourself. Threw it at him, went to my office, grabbed my shit, closed the door, and I walked out. And I think I texted him back then, and I was like, heading home, I'll be back tomorrow. And I turned my phone off and I went and sat downstairs. Now, what people don't know is that Butler had a full commercial truck division.
Okay.
With the big tractor trailers and landscaping trucks and fire engines and those big cranes, with those big massive tires. That we had a whole division like that, and my mom actually ran that division.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, and it was dope to have my mom there. I would go downstairs and have lunch with my mom every day, and I'm super close with her anyway. And I was pissed, man. I was pissed after this. And I was walking down, because I used to park my car where my mom's division was. And as I was walking, my other uncle walks out, Alan, and he's like, what's going on, dear? And I'm like, your fucking brother's a fucking asshole. And I start fucking going off,
Yeah.
And so he looks at me and he's like, all these years.
And was Mel the oldest brother?
Mel was the oldest. So the way that the partnership worked is that Mel was the face of the business and the front counter, and Alan was the back end.
Okay.
So Alan made sure that the engine was running and well oiled, and Mel drove the vehicle.
Right.
So Alan wasn't really in the limelight, but he's the main reason Butler is as successful as it was until we actually sold it. But so in conversation with Alan's like, after all these years, you still haven't figured out who Mel is, huh? And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm pissed, bro. Now I'm
you're already
emotional,
heated. Yeah,
like I'm fucking want to kill this guy, And so he explained to me who his brother was, and I'm like, well, that makes sense and everything. So, and then Alan looks at me, he's like, so what are you going to do? You going to quit? And I looked at him and I'm like, no, like, why would I quit? I've literally taken 5 years of abuse already.
Yeah.
Like, why would I give up now?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, then get back in your office. I'm like, no, fuck him,
Okay.
And he's like, okay, well, maybe you need to cool down, but that's fine. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And back then I was smoking cigars, so I go and pull out a cigar and clip it. And now my phone's off, and I'm sitting downstairs and I'm smoking my cigar, and Alan comes back down like maybe 30 minutes later, and he looks at me and he's like, so you're going to quit, or what are you going to do? And I'm like, Alan, shut the fuck up, man. I'm like, what?
You're still heated?
Yeah. Like, why would I be quitting? Like, I'm just trying to chill out. You know? He's like, well, if you can't put up with him and you don't want to work with him, then quit.
Right.
And just leave. And I'm like, this fucking guy, man. I'm like, this is your family,
Right.
So anyway, he leaves and I'm like, fuck all of them. I get in my car and I go home and I pass out, and then I wake up the next morning and I turn my phone on.
Yeah.
And the first fucking thing, back then it wasn't like, I don't think iMessage was
it was like a BlackBerry or something?
No, I think it was like a Nokia or something.
No,
it couldn't have been a Nokia. It might have been an iPhone. It could have been very well could have been an iPhone.
Like
but
the first.
Yeah, I turn it on and the very first message is from my Uncle Mel, because I texted him. I said,
you said you were going home?
Yeah, going home, won't be back. And then he sent me a message immediately afterwards, and I had to turn my phone on, but the message said, "Not okay, in my office now." And bro, I turned my phone off and I was gone. I was at home, you know. Anyway,
So this was when you got back home and you turned your phone back on.
no, the next morning.
Oh, the
I
next
had my
morning.
phone, bro. I had the phone.
So
off
when did he send that message? Not
immediately after I had sent it.
Okay.
So I sent the message. It goes whoop. I turn the phone off. That's it. I don't turn it on till the next morning.
Okay, so Mel texts you and he says,
yeah. So the reason I'm telling the story is that it was a pivotal point in my career. Okay,
right.
in my career and me establishing who I was, or my contribution to this brand that had already been created and was almost a legacy brand already. You know, like. So anyway, I wake up the next morning. And I see a text from him, "Not okay, in my office now." And I'm like, "Oh fuck, that's it. I'm fired. I'm done." Like, you know. Anyway, I go into work, and you know, I just carry on like I normally would. Now, me and Mel had our own building, separate from retail.
Okay.
Mel couldn't stand the noise and everything that was going on there. So we actually owned the property right next to Marietta. That's where head office is. We owned the property right next to it, which was like this little house. And we got to the house, and he built himself his dream office, and I had an office behind him.
Yeah.
And you'd walk in, bro, and it was like Spa-Sadell. You know, you'd walk in, there's chilled music. We had beautiful like Bova furniture in there. And we eventually evolved into, because we did a lot of celebrities and athletes, and when they would come into our stores with the creation of social, people would take pictures of them, and then our parking lots would get bombarded, and they would start getting asked for autographs and pictures and all that, and we were all about privacy. So they would pull their car up to mine and Mel's building. They would come inside. We would call the sales guy. They'd come pick their car up, work on it, bring it back. No one would ever know that they were even there.
Okay.
You know? But anyway, I walk into the office. I'm in my office, just carrying on like nothing more.
Like nothing happened.
Yeah, and then Mel comes in, man, and my fucking heart just drops. You know?
Oh no.
And the thing is, bros, I loved my job. I loved what I did.
Sure.
I loved the industry. I loved the people. I loved making a difference. I loved every aspect of what I did. Okay. And to potentially lose that, you know, it was huge for me. But on the same hand, I'd reached the end of my road. I was not, because the situation that led to that had happened so often. Okay, that
over 5 years.
Over 5 years that I just had enough. Yeah. You know? And I'm like, I can't do this anymore. We would work these deals, and then as soon as it came down to signing, he'd be like, "No, don't like it." And I'm like, "Bro, do you know how many bridges I'm burning?" Because I'm going back to them and being like, "You know what, guys, we actually not gonna." But it was all lessons learned. Anyway, he walks in, slams his briefcase, and now his wall of his office was adjacent to mine. Okay, so his front door's here, and you went down the hallway, and my door is over there, but we had a common wall. Okay,
yeah.
And I hear him slam his briefcase
in his office.
Yeah, he was one of those old school like briefcase, you know, when it opened up in his office, and I'm like, oh shit! And he comes walking down, washes his hand, and he looks at me, and he's like, "You ready?" And I'm like, "Sure." You know, like the headmaster, you know, and I'm like this little kid who's in trouble, you know. So we walk into his office, okay, and now one thing with Mel, and in my opinion, there's two different ways of running a business. One is that you praise your employees a lot. You tell them that they're doing an amazing job.
Yeah.
You reward them, whether it be financially or with incentives or time off or vacation, whatever. But my uncle, the words "good job," "well done," "great," that's never,
very rare,
not rare, never,
non-existent,
came out of his mouth.
Okay.
Openly would tell you, if you're looking for me to tell you you're doing a good job, it ain't happening. Okay.
Wow.
And I'll explain why, and why I don't disagree with his approach to it.
Sure.
Okay. Anyway, sit down, and the first thing he says is, "Look, D, I apologize. I'm sorry for the way I handled the situation. You were 100% right in reacting the way that you did. Do I agree with you leaving and storming off like you did?
Sure not.
No, absolutely not. That's not how we do it.
Dude, I'm surprised that that's
Yeah.
what he said after all of that.
He said, you know, I mean, obviously to get an apology from him was huge, you know, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, bro, anxiety, my heart's fucking pounding. And we get into this conversation and I say to him, I'm like, at what point are you going to realize that I'm your apprentice and you're my mentor? So instead of telling me what I'm doing wrong on a consistent basis, why don't you teach me the right way so that I do it the right way? And when it comes to you making the decision, everything that you've taught me is right there in front of you. It makes your life easier. It makes my life more adventurous and easier.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm not constantly being told no or that I'm doing something wrong when I'm not even being shown how to do it.
Yeah.
I'm just being told that I'm wrong and like, no. And so it was at that point that it was a huge pivotal point, and I was so sad because I only managed to get 2 years worth of that relationship with him before he passed away. But I'd learned enough in the 5 years with him of what not to do.
Sure.
And 2 years of him guiding why Butler does things the way that they do. And why? Because Butler as a brand and as a culture was Mel. It was Mel's brain. It was his baby. And I was the only one within the brand outside of my other uncle who understood why we did things the way that we did.
Yeah.
Why is it so important for the showroom to be so clean? Why is it important for the guys to answer the phone the way that they did? Why do we have glass between the showroom and the workshop? Why?
Transparency.
Exactly. Why? Like understanding branding as a whole.
Yes.
So, you know, when he did pass away, there was a sense of it's my responsibility to now take this brand and sustain it and grow it. And you know, when the old guard passes down to a new generation, the new generation could go two ways. It's either they come in and they change everything and fuck a company up that's been around. I mean, Butler's been around since the 70s.
Yeah.
You know, that's huge. That's
huge.
a long time, you know.
Time.
And I even used to laugh back then that, you know, people would come to us and be like, oh, we're going to take Butler down and, you know, oh, we this and we so great and we that. I'm like, bro, come talk to me in 40 years. When your doors are still open in 40 years,
then
we have the same conversation. But until that point, go out there, bro. Beat your chest. Tell me you're the best. Tell me you're the greatest.
Yeah.
And I'll believe you. I really will. Yeah. You know, but anything that we ever did at Butler, and this came from internal as well, started with Mel, continued with me and with Craig and with Gary, we never beat our chests. You'll never hear us saying, we the best, we the greatest. We just went out there, we found the best product, we offered the best service. You know, that's how we did business. That's how we proved that, in our opinion, we were the best at what we felt we could do. You know, so, and again, I'm a firm believer. People would ask us all the time, you know, who are your competitors? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know who our competitors are because I'm not worried about what everybody else is doing. Right. If somebody is out there doing what I'm doing better than me, they deserve to win.
Yeah.
That's life.
That's life.
You know, if somebody, like we said with the races, if somebody trained for 3 months more than I did, came to the start line and finished in front of me, how am I going to be mad?
Yeah.
You did more work. You did more prep. You ran a better race than me. You deserve to win. Here's the trophy. And guess what? I'm going to stand back and I'm going to clap my hands for you.
Yeah.
Because I love, bro. One thing people don't know about me is that I love seeing people be successful.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love seeing people be successful. And if I can help in any way possible for that person to be successful, I'm there.
That's amazing.
You know?
Yeah. No, so I even my approach with exotic auto trade has been that, yes, by proxy, I will be, you know, transacting your car deals for you remotely, what have you. But I am very much brand and marketing focused first. And brand means so much more than just a logo and colors and stuff. How your brand or business is a living organism and how all the pieces of the ecosystem work together to create something that, like you said, like Butler Tire was Mel's brain, like how you create your brain into your brand and how you represent yourself. I'm a broker. I'm a broker last.
So if you think about it, right, and this is life, okay? Character and integrity.
Yeah.
Take you years and years to establish that.
Right.
Especially in your industry.
Yeah.
Good character and unbelievable integrity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you work on that, you work on that, you work on that, and people start gravitating towards that because of the stigma that comes with automotive dealers. Okay, you the anti-stigma.
Yeah.
Because you've got great character and you've got great integrity. You won't sell a shitty car.
Right.
You treat people with respect. Okay, and it takes you years and years to build that up. And think about it. It can all be gone in a split second.
Right.
And you can never, ever, ever gain that back.
Never get it
You
back.
can never convince somebody that you are something other than what they think you are.
Yeah.
And if you mess your integrity up, bro, it's done. You've burnt yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and that's sometimes the demise of businesses. The demise of businesses is when people get complacent or when egos get involved, you know, and it's not about the customer, you know, and with us and Butler, it was always about the customer, whether you lost money or not. It was actually never about the money.
Yeah.
We never ever focused around the money.
Yeah.
It was always about do what's right for the customer.
Right.
And the customer will carry on doing business with you as long as you treat them well and you do what's right for them.
Right.
You know, so yeah, I mean, even our approach to selling tires, it's, you know, you come in with an M5, yeah, it comes with this specific brand and these specific tire sizes, and we could have a drone behind the counter saying, oh, well, it's a 2022 M5, it calls for these tires, blah, let's put them on. But we spun that on the head, and it's like, what type of driving do you do? Do you do a lot of stop and go? Are you in the mountains? Do you track the car? Do you are you more concerned with performance in winter? We pair you with the perfect tire for your driving style.
Right.
Versus the manufacturer's got to go out there and it's got to look at 1,000 different tire brands, 1,000 different sizes, 1,000 different treads, and find a happy medium that will work for everybody.
Right.
That will work for a 70-year-old man who just wants an M5 because he likes the way it sounds when it starts,
Yeah.
to a 20-year-old who loves to go zooming through downtown Atlanta.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But when you take that out of the equation and now you focus on one person and you personalize that experience just for them, it creates a whole different mindset. It's like, those tires are for me.
Yeah.
The other guy might have them, but those are made for the way I drive.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a different mentality, and you can apply that to any business.
Yeah.
You can apply that to your business.
Yeah.
You know, if a guy calls you, I mean, look, you're in a different league because you're dealing with super high-end luxury exotic vehicles.
Exactly.
Okay. People who call you typically have done their research.
Yep.
They know what they're talking about, and in today's time, the consumer is a lot more educated than they were back then.
100%.
You know, it takes a lot of stress off of you.
Yeah.
Because, for example, somebody calls you, they're like, I want a Ferrari F8.
Yeah.
You don't have to sell that car.
No, it's already sold.
That's what I'm saying.
I just have to find the right one.
Yeah, you just have to source it. Well, how do you source it? You source it through your relationships that you have, through your network,
Exactly.
You know, and going out there and people wanting to do business with you, knowing that when you call and you ask about a car, there's a 60, 70+% chance that you're actually going to buy it from them.
Right.
You know, because if you keep wasting their time, they're not going to answer your call.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
look, I'm a victim of that as well. There's car dealers and locals, which I won't call them out, but that when I call, they don't pick up the phone.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I'm not mad. I understand.
Yeah,
I understand. And it's because I'm very finicky about what I want, and I do a lot of research and I ask a lot of questions, and you know, sometimes it doesn't pan out.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, it's you're in a challenging one.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a very interesting market. I mean, but see, it goes back to my passion for this, right? I've told some of my clients, like, look, and maybe I'll ask you this too, because like just from a mentorship perspective, right? It's like some of my clients, some of them are very, very close with me, and I could do this for free if I wanted to, because I love it so much, right? But at the end of the day, you have to provide a living for yourself. You have to put a roof over your head. And this is the path that I've chosen for myself. So it's like, how do you, because because when you love it so much, it's not about the money. It's just
if in my
how do you
opinion,
bridge that gap? Because you know that phase sometimes gets awkward.
and it's
like,
so funny because I have this exact same conversation with a very good mutual friend of ours.
Yeah.
You know, who is very very focused around money. And I'm like, what's your number? You know, and when he's like 20 million, and I'm like, well, and I'll shift away from it, you know, but I was sitting at another story, because my life after Butler has been nothing short of amazing. I have an amazing girlfriend that we travel a lot, and even like going back to social media, you know, I went super low key after I left Butler, and you know, just started focusing on my happiness. But I started working with this amazing company called Hensler Financial, on a consulting basis and helping them get a branch up and running in Naples. And, you know, it's been an adventure to say the least. In wealth management and tax services and all that sort of stuff, the industry that I knew nothing about, you know, and my curiosity got to me again. And so, you know, here I am. It's like a whole evolution again. But there's one person in the company that I'm very, very close with, and that we work very closely together. And, you know, we were sitting down and he's like, oh man, I made X amount of dollars this year. And I sat there and I was like, that's cool, you know, that's cool. And then like towards the end of the dinner or anything like that, I said to him, you know, I said, one thing about me, money doesn't impress me. Like, I don't get intimidated by it. If you've got $100,000, you got $100. Oh, you're going to be treated the same thing.
Sure.
I said, and if you come to me and say, well, I made $1 million last year, good for you, bro. It's round you did amazing, you know, however you did. But I said to him, you know, you told me how much you're earning at the age that you're earning, and it's significant at his age. And I said to him, I said, I don't know if you were expecting me to, you know, be like, oh my God, I can't believe you're making that much, you know, focusing on the money. I said, but I would have been more impressed had you said, hey, I'm only 34 years old. This is what I've accomplished in my life. I've gone from an entry-level associate to, you know, accomplishing X. I'm like, in my opinion, the measurement of success is what you've accomplished in your career, because the money, like you said, you'd be doing it for free. You'd be doing it for free, but you have to pay bills. So the money, if the money is secondary and your focus is giving the client the best experience possible, it could lead to nothing short of success.
Right.
And I just wish more people would focus on that.
No, yeah, 100%.
You know, so it's listen, there's people out there that go and run businesses with buying at X and selling at Y and saying, well, this is the profit. You know, this is the difference. But there's other people out there that say, you know, and both my partners will tell you, you know, at Butler, it was never, ever about the money. Yeah, it wasn't.
No, and I think when you approach business from that perspective of creating the relationship first, that's actually like an infinite tunnel of what you'll receive back, because you provide one person with a good experience or an incredible experience, they're going to tell all their friends about it too.
Do you know how many times my phone would ring? Okay, now I wasn't in retail. Okay, I'm just like almost like you or some people that we know. I don't know fitments. Okay, I don't know tire sizes. People call me like, "Hey, will this tire fit?" I don't fucking know. Google it. You know. But do you know how many people would call me and say, "Hey, man, I just bought a brand new 992 GT3. I need wheels for it." I'm like, "Oh, sweet! What a sweet car! Amazing! That I know. You know, I know that." The cars are dope or whatever, but I don't know fitments. I'm like, bro, we've got so much in stock. Come meet me at the store. They'd come into the store and I'd meet them. Oh, great to see you. Amazing car, beautiful, whatever. Hey, Bob, meet Wayne. Wayne, meet Bob. Wayne, Bob needs some new wheels for his GT3. Bob, Wayne's going to take care of you with your wheels.
Right.
Cool. No problem. Shake hands. I'll walk away. Guess what? Bob leaves with an amazing set of wheels. Wayne is he's continued that relationship and life goes on. Well, a year later, Bob calls me, hey man, sold the GT3 and I upgraded to a GT3 RS now. Do you have anything for that? Sure, Bob, come meet me at the store. Bob walks in. I'm like, Bob, meet Wayne. But what I'm trying to get to is that once you've established that relationship,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter who they deal with in the company. The relationship is always going to stem from you.
Right.
And that's why it's so important. Like even when we were doing car shows or events, the sales guys, the sales team was always instructed to never try and sell anybody anything at the show.
Right.
You're just out there building relationships.
Right.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
Because once you've established that relationship and you've taken care of that person, that relationship could be worth endless amounts of money.
Mhm.
You actually can't put a number on it because the amount that they're going to spend with you over the lifetime of them driving, plus their friends and their family and the daughters and whatever,
Yeah.
it's priceless.
Yeah.
You know? So
No, yeah, and I think back to culture, right? When you're kind of their point man and they contact you when they need things, and then you, like you said, you're passing it to Wayne, for example, after they come in.
Yeah.
It's like they trust you because you are the brand and you created that culture, and they know that any extension of you within the company, you're going to be taken care of because you take care of them.
Yeah.
Right. So that ties right back into brand and creating that ecosystem and everything.
Yeah.
So
as far as the branding was concerned, and we were talking about this off camera a little bit, you know, when you look at like social media, okay, social media is the perfect world.
Mhm.
Every girl that you ever see on there is a supermodel. Every guy is a billionaire. Everybody's wearing the watches, they're wearing the sneakers, they're driving the cars, whatever. That's my feed. Okay. So,
yeah.
And it's a whole wealth of a lot of people giving inspirational posts. You know, that's my feed. But there's a reality to it, you know, and the reality is that in order to own the watches or the cars, you have to put in a lot of time and you have to put in the work.
Yeah.
There's very few people out there that can go out there, create an app or have an invention that makes them extremely wealthy overnight. And even then, the chances of them sustaining their wealth is not great unless they're actually smart.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of people that have invented things that have become millionaires and then are broke 5 years later.
Yeah.
You know, so we acknowledge that. Like I acknowledged that a long time ago, where the younger demographic is so important in sustaining longevity within your brand.
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter what business you're in, but if you're not appealing to that younger demographic, you have no longevity.
Right.
But the conversation that we were having is that you can't sustain a business on our social media feed. It's unrealistic.
Uh-huh.
Okay, there's
Right.
not 50,000 Lambos around to put wheels on. And if there are 50,000 of them, which I'm sure there are in Atlanta, if I don't know the number, but you're not putting wheels on all of them. You're not lowering all of them. You're not putting exhaust on all of them. You can't sustain a business on that.
Yeah.
You have to sustain a business on your daily drivers, the guys who need 4 tires and they need brakes and alignment. The unfortunate reality is, if I put a picture of a Nissan Altima coming in for 4 tires and an alignment, how much engagement is it going to get?
Not much.
Fucking nothing.
Yeah.
You know, so how as a branding specialist or marketing specialist, how do you sustain a brand where the impression on social media is that you only deal with luxury and high performance, but the reality is I've got $140,000 nut per store that I got to sustain with daily drivers.
Right.
Yeah, and so we applied like different tactics. We went out there and, you know, I pulled traditional radio eventually, went onto Pandora to appeal to that demographic, partnered up with a whole bunch of schools so that the moms and the parents saw that we supported the local community and they would support local businesses.
Yeah.
There was all these different strategies, and each one, I think when I started, there were 3 marketing channels that were being utilized at Butler. One was Yellow Pages, traditional radio,
billboards,
and then there was the website. The billboards was co-op, so it was every now and then. But those were the 3 channels, and even the website. I think the website was generating 75 visits a week, if I'm not mistaken. And by the time I left, I think that there were 14 different channels that we were going after, and each one of them had their own message, had their own structure, their own assets in order to attract that portion of the demographic that made up the entire picture of what the success of Butler was.
I see.
You know, so when, let's say, the economy was going through the shitter. Okay, let's say COVID comes through, whatever it is. Okay, well then what do? You rely heavily on automotive dealerships.
Right.
Let's bring your cars in. Let's inspect the tires. Let's inspect the tie rods. Let's inspect that. So you've got that portion of the business because that's built on relationships. Then, everybody's going back to school. Well, let's make sure that you arrive safely with your kids.
Yeah.
Because that's their objective. So you have a campaign running for that.
Right.
Well, summer's coming up. It's time for a refresh for your car.
Right.
Bring your exotic in. Let's put in wheels and tires and whatever. Oh, there's a track day coming. Guess what? We'll do free track inspection for you.
Okay.
So there were so many different facets to the marketing department. And I even had a friend, I'm not sure if you know who he is, Tyler, but he walked into my office and my whiteboard was like a mad scientist, and he's like, what is this? And I'm like, those are all the campaigns that are running at any given time. And he's like, bro, I just thought, you were just social media and taking pictures.
Yeah.
And I'm like, bro, there's so much strategy that goes behind every single thing that we do. Everything has intention.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. And it's funny because a lot of people always call me and they're like, hey, I got this great idea and I want to do this, and the next thing. And the first thing I say to them, what is the purpose?
Yeah.
Marketing has to have purpose. What's the purpose behind it?
Yeah.
Why do you want to do it? Like what's the purpose of putting the campaign together?
Right.
And it's the same thing in your business.
Yeah.
What's the purpose of owning your business? Is it to generate revenue? Is it to look after people? Is it to create a different experience? Once you know the purpose, it's a lot easier to build around that.
Yeah, mine is definitely creating a different experience with these level of clientele. Like you said, I think for example, how you're talking about, you need those dailyable cars, right? Because not every day a Lambo's pulling up or whatever. And so I do take that approach. Like, I'm going to go for the mid-level luxury brands, kind of more the higher end of those, like AMG, RS cars, M cars and up, and go all the way up.
I think when I first met you, you were introduced to me as the Audi specialist.
Yeah.
R8 guy.
Yeah.
I
sold the second most R8s out of that dealership behind the guy that's been there for 10 years, and Audi sport cars.
Yeah.
But we had 20 to 25 people in sales at a time. And I was always like we were talking about earlier, there were a majority of the salespeople in there, they would hit their monthly minimums and they would call it a day.
Yeah.
But I just kept pushing. Dude. Yeah, I'm not either. I shot for 20 plus cars as much as I could.
The shitty thing about being in retail, right, is that you have these monthly goals, whether it's personal or in your business, and you just keep driving.
Yeah.
And you get like to the last day of the month and you're like, fuck it, I hit the goal. And then guess what? The first of the month comes and that
starting all the way over
makes no difference. It's wiped away and here you are starting again, and it takes you a few days, a day or two, and you build momentum, and then it's like, okay, cool, now we've got and it's over and over and over. It happens 12 times a year. So
12 times a year. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's talk cars, man. We haven't even talked cars at all. All right. So let's talk cars. Let's talk about some cars that you've had, that you've loved, and things like that.
The funny thing is that I actually personally haven't owned a lot of cars. I think in my entire driving career, which I started driving at 18, which is 30 years ago? Is it 30? Yeah, fucking old. I think I've had 10 cars total.
Okay.
But there's cars on. I think everybody's got a bucket list, and especially being in the industry that I was in, I got to drive a lot of cars. Thankfully, a lot of amazing customers trusted me with their cars, and I got to drive a lot of my dream cars. But I think, I came from BMW. My first car here in the United States was a Honda Civic CX hatchback.
Nice. That's what my dad had. My dad had the same car,
had no AC, no power windows, no defogger, no radio, no nothing. Cost me $9,998 brand new.
Nice.
And it was the pride and joy of my life. From there, I went into... I wrecked that. I had my first head-on collision with that. I was fucked up, and Gary, my business partner, convinced me to buy a Beetle, one of the new Beetles.
Okay.
It was the worst decision of my life. It was like, I was like driving a a mobile cock block, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, got out of that, got into a G35 coupe,
Nice.
which was a badass car.
Yeah.
From there, went into an E46 M3, which I loved that car.
Yeah.
Loved it, except put 110,000 miles. And back then, you don't know like the value of this vehicle or how significant it's going to be in today's times.
The future, right?
Yeah, you know, but went from there, went into an E92 M3, hated that car more than anything in the entire world.
Why?
Because I went a stick shift,
Uh-huh.
and it didn't matter how you shifted from first to second, what you did, short shift, it didn't matter. I hated that car. You gave your passenger whiplash every time you changed from first to second to third. There was no slow transition, but in the mountains it was an amazing car.
Yeah.
And then I always wanted a C63. I loved the way when you cranked them, the sound. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I bought a 2012 C63 coupe. It was such a cool story because it was in Chicago. I found it. It was a P31 edition. And I jumped on a plane at 10 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning, took a check over to the guy randomly in Boston, jumped in a cab, went to the dude's house, gave him the check, had never met him before, just randomly, gave him the check, took the title and one of the keys, got back in the cab waited for me outside, drove me back to the airport. I was back on a plane at 1 o'clock and home at like 3 o'clock.
Damn.
You know, with the title and everything. And 4 days later, the car was in my front yard, which was amazing back then in those times.
Yeah.
Then from there, went to the newer C63S coupe, which I also loved that car.
Yeah.
From that, went into an AMG GTC coupe, one of my favorite cars as well.
So first kind of exotic a little bit.
Yeah. It was the first like really expensive car for me, over 100 grand car for me. Absolutely loved that car. The problem was I dailied it. Like I put 15,000 miles on that thing in the first year. You know? Drove it everywhere. It was beautiful. And then from there, traded that in, got myself a Rover, drove that around, and I'm like, I can't do this like SUV life, you know.
Really?
So I kept the Rover, and then bought myself an R8. I always remember I was talking to. I always wanted an R8. Bought one of the most beautiful R8s. Quickly found out after the first
Camaro
trip.
one?
Yeah, this was Camaro Grey with that like butterscotch interior, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Found out within the first 10 hours of owning the vehicle that this was not going to work for me.
What?
We drove up to Nashville to pick it up.
Yeah.
Bought it from the guy, private seller. Drove it back from Nashville, and we got stuck in a little bit of traffic. Took us like 6 hours to get home.
Yeah.
By the time I got home, I'm like, get me the fuck out of this car, bro. You know, I couldn't
Why?
fit in it.
Oh.
You know, it was one of my favorite cars. Couldn't fit in it. Drove it for 6 months. Every time I would get out of the car, I couldn't move.
Body's aching.
Yeah. So sold that, and then got into a 992 GT3, which was one of my absolute favorite cars. Just got to a point where putting miles on it made no sense.
Yeah.
And I love driving my cars. So sold the 992 with the guys at Strata. And I got myself a 992 GTS right now.
Nice.
Which is also one of my favorite cars.
Dude,
it's so much fun.
The GTS is the absolute best way to go, especially if you're dailying the car and
bro, I want to be able to get to the Ritz-Carlton, park my car up front and be dope.
Yeah.
And low key with my amazing girlfriend.
Yeah.
And I also want to be able to go to a car show and make an impression there.
Yes.
And I think the GTS is perfect. The only thing I hate about it is the stupid the aero, the spoiler in the back. I think it just destroys the 992 package.
Really?
Yeah, with the active aero. But then again, I didn't want to put a spoiler on it or get the aero package.
Yeah.
Because it just looks like you want to be a GT3, but you're not.
But you're not, exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean...
that's awesome.
Yeah.
No, so, okay, real fast. What are your... You know, you got a 4-car garage. Unlimited funds.
Well, I was thinking about this as well.
You were?
Unlimited funds.
Unlimited funds.
Okay.
4 cars only.
First of all, I got a full-size Rover in there.
All right.
Because you always got to have a Rover.
Yeah.
And until you own a Rover, you don't understand this.
Okay.
992 GT3 100%. I do love the Cully. I think it's such a fuck you car.
Cully, yeah.
Yeah.
Cullinan.
And then the last one, I'm not a huge Lambo guy. I appreciate them, but it would never be my stable. So it would definitely have to be a Ferrari. Be a 458, 488, F8.
Which one? You can only choose one.
Geez, man, he's gonna kill me. I'd actually do a 355 Spider.
Oh,
Yeah.
You know, there's a yellow one available and gated. It's a gated manual too.
Yeah, I would do one. Probably red, tan interior, lowered on a nasty set of wheels.
Nice.
Yeah. So I've always wanted one of those cars. I just can't afford the maintenance.
Yeah, maintenance on them is crazy.
Yeah. So Cullinan for me and the family, Rover for me to go play golf, 992 to have fun, and a 355 Spider because it's been my ultimate dream car.
That's sick, man.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I really appreciate you.
Bro, thanks so much, man.
Podcast, man.
Pleasure.
It means a lot as I begin this journey on my
Bro, you got my
business.
support, man.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Definitely look up to you, man. I've always looked up to you. I kind of knew you through the grapevine a bit, and then a good friend of ours introduced us, and it's been awesome ever since, man. Looking forward to it.
Just stay humble.
Of course. That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
So thanks, guys. For any of you that are watching, if you guys are looking for a luxury or exotic, feel free to hit me up. If you're looking to sell one, hit me up. I'll make it happen for you. And thanks for watching the episode, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.